When installing or working near TXU Energy's incoming power lines, there are crucial clearances and restrictions to adhere to. These guidelines ensure safety and compliance with electrical codes. Firstly, let's discuss vertical clearances. The incoming line must maintain a minimum of 12 feet clearance from the ground at all points. Additionally, a vertical clearance of 18 feet is required from any buildings or structures. Secondly, we need to consider horizontal clearances. A minimum horizontal clearance of 4 feet must be maintained from buildings or structures. For trees or vegetation, the horizontal clearance requirement is 2 feet. Moving on to conductor specifications, the minimum conductor size should be 600 kcmAAC or its equivalent. The conductor height must be at least 20 feet above the ground at the point of attachment to the building. Furthermore, the minimum spacing between conductors must be 18 inches. Regarding the metering point, its location must be accessible and visible from the public right-of-way. It should also be located near the point of utility supply. The meter panel must be approved by TXU Energy and conform to National Electrical Code standards. Additional restrictions involve several aspects. Service disconnects must be accessible and visible and rated for the maximum capacity of the service. Branding must comply with the National Electrical Code and TXU Energy specifications. Conduit must be either rigid metal or an approved non-metallic type, and it needs to be securely fastened and watertight. Trenches must be at least 2 feet deep and 12 inches wide, and they must be properly backfilled and compacted. It is important to remember that these are general guidelines, and specific requirements may vary depending on the location and equipment used. Always consult with TXU Energy before making any changes to the incoming line. Let's delve deeper into each of these aspects to provide a more comprehensive understanding. Vertical clearance is crucial for safety, preventing accidental contact with the power lines. The 12 feet ground clearance is a general minimum, but higher clearances might be necessary in areas with vehicular traffic or heavy pedestrian activity. The 18 feet clearance from buildings and structures is essential to prevent arcing and potential fire hazards, especially during adverse weather conditions. Horizontal clearances are equally important. The 4 feet clearance from buildings prevents the power lines from touching the structure, which could lead to electrical hazards and damage to the building. The 2 feet clearance from trees and vegetation minimizes the risk of branches interfering with the power lines, causing outages or even fires. The conductor size of 600 kcmAAC or equivalent is specified to ensure the line can handle the expected load without overheating or experiencing excessive voltage drop. Using a smaller conductor size can lead to inefficient power delivery and potentially damage the electrical system. Maintaining a conductor height of 20 feet at the point of attachment is essential for safety and to prevent accidental contact. This height also helps to ensure that the line is not obstructed by vehicles or other objects. The minimum conductor spacing of 18 inches prevents short circuits and arcing between the conductors. Proper spacing is especially important in areas with high winds or ice accumulation. The metering point's location is critical for accurate billing and easy access for utility personnel. Being accessible and visible from the public right-of-way ensures that meter readers can easily access the meter without having to enter private property. Locating the meter near the point of utility supply minimizes the length of the service conductors and reduces voltage drop. The meter panel must meet TXU Energy's approval and conform to National Electrical Code standards to ensure safety and accuracy. The panel must be properly rated for the expected load and provide adequate protection against overcurrents and short circuits. Service disconnects are essential for safely disconnecting power to the building in case of emergencies or maintenance. The disconnect must be accessible and visible so that it can be easily located and operated. It must also be rated for the maximum capacity of the service to ensure that it can safely interrupt the flow of current. Grounding is a critical safety measure that protects against electrical shock and equipment damage. The grounding system must comply with the National Electrical Code and TXU Energy specifications to ensure that it is properly installed and maintained. Conduit is used to protect the service conductors from physical damage and environmental factors. Rigid metal conduit provides the best protection, but approved non-metallic conduit can also be used in certain applications. The conduit must be securely fastened to the building, and all connections must be watertight to prevent moisture from entering the system. Trenches must be at least 2 feet deep to protect the underground service conductors from damage and disturbance. A width of 12 inches provides adequate space for installing the conductors and backfilling the trench. Proper backfilling and compaction are essential to prevent settling and ensure that the conductors are properly supported. Now, let's consider the specifics of these regulations in the context of Northeast Texas. While the general guidelines remain consistent, local conditions and regulations may introduce some variations. For example, soil conditions in Northeast Texas, which can range from sandy to clay-rich, may influence the trenching and backfilling requirements. Sandy soils may require additional compaction to prevent settling, while clay-rich soils may require measures to prevent water accumulation and frost heave. Furthermore, the prevalence of certain tree species in Northeast Texas may necessitate more frequent vegetation management around power lines to maintain the required clearances. Local ordinances may also impose additional restrictions on the location of metering points or the type of conduit that can be used. It is always essential to consult with TXU Energy and local authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. Now let's talk about some specific scenarios that might occur and the correct way to handle them. Let's consider a situation where a building is located very close to the property line. This could impact the horizontal clearance requirements. In such cases, it may be necessary to relocate the service entrance or to use specialized construction techniques to maintain the required clearances. Another scenario could involve the presence of underground utilities in the vicinity of the proposed trench. In this case, it is crucial to carefully locate and identify all underground utilities before digging the trench. Hand digging may be required to avoid damaging the utilities. In areas with high water tables, it may be necessary to dewater the trench before installing the conduit and conductors. This can be achieved using pumps or other dewatering equipment. In situations where the service conductors must cross a road or other obstacle, it may be necessary to install them in a duct bank or to use other specialized construction techniques. Now let's address some frequently asked questions about TXU Energy's incoming line requirements. One common question is whether it is permissible to install a swimming pool or other structure under the power lines. Generally, this is not allowed due to safety concerns. The required vertical clearance must be maintained at all times. Another common question is whether it is permissible to plant trees or shrubs near the power lines. While planting is allowed, it is important to select species that will not grow too tall and interfere with the power lines. TXU Energy may have specific guidelines on acceptable tree species. Another question is whether it is permissible to attach anything to the power poles. Generally, this is not allowed without the express permission of TXU Energy. Attaching objects to the poles can create safety hazards and interfere with the operation of the power lines. The information here should not be considered a substitute for professional advice. Always consult with qualified electrical contractors and TXU Energy representatives to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Let's elaborate on each of the requirements, discussing why they are in place and the consequences if they are ignored. For example, with the vertical clearance requirement, if a vehicle or piece of equipment were to come into contact with the power lines, it could result in serious injury or death. Also, ignoring the horizontal clearance requirements can result in property damage during storms and high winds, as the lines may come in contact with structures and potentially cause a fire. Conductor size is important because undersized conductors will overheat, which can damage the insulation, leading to short circuits and fires. Using the wrong size can also cause voltage drop. This means appliances might not function properly and electronic equipment could be damaged. Conductor height is an important aspect to follow. If the conductors are too low, there is a greater risk of accidental contact by people or equipment, potentially causing electrocution. Following conductor spacing guidelines are equally important. Insufficient spacing between conductors can lead to arcs and short circuits, especially during wet conditions, which could cause power outages and fires. Metering point location is an important aspect for the utility company to follow. Inaccessible meters can delay meter readings, which causes billing issues and potential service disruption. Non-compliant meter panels are a hazard. These can lead to inaccurate billing, electrical fires, and safety hazards for meter readers and homeowners. Service disconnects are a safety measure for homeowners and first responders in the event of an emergency, so these need to be easily accessible to safely cut the power. Improper grounding can result in electrical shock hazards, equipment damage, and increased risk of fires. Substandard conduit leads to conductor damage from physical impacts, moisture, and corrosion, leading to short circuits and potential electrocution hazards. Improperly dubbed trenches lead to damage of underground conductors from shifting soil, vehicle traffic, and accidental digging, resulting in power outages and safety hazards. Therefore, it is paramount that when installing or working around electrical lines, you take the time to know the electrical codes and what the utility company expects. Also, take note of any inspections needed with your local governing bodies to ensure that the electrical installations are compliant and safe. Let's recap the importance of adhering to these guidelines. Non-compliance can lead to serious consequences, including electrical hazards, property damage, and legal liabilities. By following these guidelines, you can ensure the safety of yourself, your property, and the community. Remember that electrical work is inherently dangerous, and it is essential to take all necessary precautions. If you are not qualified to perform electrical work, always hire a licensed electrical contractor. They have the knowledge, skills, and experience to perform the work safely and in compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Moreover, always verify the credentials of any electrical contractor before hiring them. Check their license status, insurance coverage, and references. A reputable contractor will be happy to provide you with this information. Finally, never hesitate to ask questions. If you are unsure about any aspect of the electrical work, ask the contractor to explain it to you. A knowledgeable contractor will be happy to answer your questions and address your concerns. Now that we have covered the essential clearances and restrictions for TXU Energy's incoming power lines, you should have a better understanding of the requirements for safe and compliant installations. Always remember to consult with TXU Energy and qualified professionals before making any changes to your electrical service. Staying informed and following best practices will help to ensure the safety and reliability of your electrical system. Understanding the nuances of each requirement is paramount for any electrical installation or maintenance project. The information provided is intended to serve as a starting point for understanding the complexities of TXU Energy's requirements. However, this is not exhaustive, and it is not a substitute for professional advice. Always consult with TXU Energy and qualified professionals before undertaking any electrical work.